I want to talk about something very important. Seemingly trivial, very important. You know the news, right? UnitedHealthcare CEO got murked, assassinated outside of a hotel in Midtown Manhattan. The police are closing in on the shooter. They're probably going to find the guy. You know, it's a very high-profile case. It'd be very embarrassing for the NYPD if they didn't find the guy. Most of the time, the NYPD, or in fact, police in general, do not give a shit about solving crimes. You know, it doesn't reflect poorly on them. But if they're pressured, you know, by the media, which they certainly are in this case, they have resources. You know, what's the budget of the NYPD? $50 trillion? I don't know. Anyway, people are losing their minds online. Turns out the shooter's quite handsome, according to some CCTV footage, giving you the stunner smile. It's what happens to your physiognomy when you're... We don't support what this man did, to be clear, okay? That would be untoward and a violation of YouTube's terms of service. We don't support what he did. Clearly, it's done wonders for his demeanor and jawline. Funny, this Yahoo News article actually chose to use the picture of him smiling for this one. I wanted to talk, I didn't mention this much yesterday on account of me not like having eidetic memory of everything that's ever happened to anyone ever. You know the CEO that got killed? I'm not justifying his murder. You know he was like really, really, really evil? Like really evil? Listen to this. Murdered insurance CEO had deployed an AI to automatically deny benefits for sick people. You know that the CEO of a health insurance company in America is evil no matter what. But in this case, just over a year before Brian Thompson was murdered this week in Midtown Manhattan, a lawsuit filed against the insurance giant he helmed revealed how draconian its claims-denying process had become. Last November, the estates of two former UHC patients, I wonder why former, filed suit in Minnesota alleging the insurer used an AI algorithm to deny and override claims to elderly patients that had been approved by their doctors. The algorithm in question, known as NH Predict, allegedly had a 90% error rate. That's crazy. You hear there were a series of words written on the casings? Yerp. Reports claim he wrote the words deny, defend, and depose on the shell casing of the bullets, which once again does throw this firmly in the realm of like, this is a movie. You know what I mean? Like clear CCTV footage of a guy in a hoodie with a backpack with a silencer with subsonic ammunition, murking a guy outside a hotel, then disappearing, and then afterwards you get all like this. It's cinema, is what I'm saying. It's and this being written on the casings. So he wasn't a paid assassin? I don't know. Look, I'm sure they'll catch the guy and we'll find out more. Maybe he'll kill himself before the cops catch him. I don't know. Look, I'm telling you, the CCTV and the released image are not the same guy. I'm just going off what the media is saying, okay? I'm just going off what the media is saying, all right? I wasn't there. I was not in Midtown Manhattan that morning. I do not have any opinions because I wasn't there. I wasn't there. No one has any evidence that I was there. I wanted to talk about this and go back into, if we could slide the conversation back into my preferred territory, which is blaming the Democrats for everything, if I may. If you've been online, you've probably noticed that literally everybody is supporting the shooter. Like, that's barely even an exaggeration. Like, across the board, on social media, top to bottom, everyone, every age group, not even that politically. It's not just the left. It's literally like across the board. Nobody cares. Like, the only people who are defending him are the weaseliest, most limp-wristed of libshits and, like, politicians and, you know, that kind of deal. Like, I think Tim Walz said something like, you know, this is terrible, whatever. I don't know. For the most part, people aren't defending him. It's not like, yeah, I saw Aaron Rupar. Aaron Rupar was like, how dare all of you, you know? It's not just the online left. You see the Facebook post on this? I think that since then, the number of laughing emojis has like tripled or quadrupled or something like that. But United Health Group, look at this. At time of focus on the ratio, not the absolute value. At time of screenshot, 23K reacts, 19K of which are laughing. I mean, come on. People really didn't like the guy. And also, It's worth noting that while Brian Thompson was an evil man who presided over and profited from the deaths of hundreds, perhaps thousands of people in the short time that he was CEO of UnitedHealthcare, I mean, genuinely like a social mass murderer. And the only defenses you can really mount of his behavior, his use of that AI algorithm to automatically deny claims in a way that is legitimized by the AI algorithm. The only defense you can really mount on him is the Nuremberg defense, can't you? Like, oh, well, he was the CEO of a healthcare company or health insurance company. Of course he had to kill people for profit, which is like, okay, sure. Like, all right. You could do that for anything. It's, like, oh, it's a member of the Schutzstaffel. Like, what are you going to do? That's his job. Yeah, okay. So Nuremberg defenses aside, really, nobody has anything positive to say about this guy. Classic, like, clean Wehrmacht bullshit. So with all of this being said, do you understand why Kamala Harris lost now? I hope some Democrats are looking at this. People didn't even know who Brian Thompson was. Nobody remembers the name of any given CEO. There are a million evil companies. People are furious with the system right now. And I am saying the system in the most anti-intellectual, broad, meaningless sense possible, because that is how people are thinking. People do despise the healthcare system, yeah, but no one likes CEOs. The right doesn't like them for a variety of reasons, usually because they use them as scapegoats for conspiracy theories. The left doesn't like them. But you know what? The median person also doesn't like them. Again, people have this idea that you're either on the left, the right, or the center. There's no such thing as a moderate centrist. There's 5 guys that are like that, okay? The average American is a psychopath who would send the other half of the country to a wall if they could. I know, I really mean it. I really genuinely mean it. If you have a conversation with an average, and it can be anyone, go have a conversation at a bar with a West Virginia, some Appalachian, 45-year-old something. Go have a conversation with a tech guy in San Francisco, he's going to one of those sleeper tube capsule hotels that cram himself in there before his next 18-hour day of work. Go to any of these people, just any people who wouldn't consider themselves a leftist or a MAGA head or whatever, and you know what, they're all sick of it. Nobody's happy with the direction things are going. Nobody is. That's just a fact. It's one of the reasons why the messaging that Democrats are so fond of, which is well, America's already great. If you take a look for this, this chart, it actually shows the number is higher than it used to be. Here we have a means-tested policy that will affect 2.3% of the population and improve their well-being on average by 0.48%. That's better than the other guy who's going to make your life worse. Doesn't work. I'm not saying that Democrats should step out and say this shooting was based. I'm not saying that, and they're not going to do that. And if you think they're going to do that, you have the brain of a child and you are spending too much time online. That is not going to happen, obviously. Not just because, the healthcare companies lobby and so on and so forth, but also because, don't be stupid. Come on, they're not going to do that. However, they should really look at this environment. An environment where it's not just nihilistic internet leftists, but everyone reacting this way to the assassination of a health insurance CEO, and use that to help further their understanding of why they lost. Because again, if you are only talking about in a mathematical, flat utilitarian sense, which party is better? Democrats, obviously the Democrats. If you are operating sensibly, if you are reasonable, if you know how politics works, it's obviously the Democrats by a wide margin too, not because the Democrats are going to make your life so much better, but because the Republicans are going to make it that much worse. But that's still a big difference. But that's obviously not how people vote, at least not all of them. Look, I just want some affirmation on this. Can we agree that even outside of the left and the right, even for the hundreds of millions of Americans who are more towards the center, whatever that means, a lot of these people are not only fed up with the status quo, but like if you put one beer in them, I mean, like if they're even a little bit relaxed, they would start grumbling about how their boss needs to, you know, like their boss, or like the pharmaceutical industry, insurance companies, they'll go after car companies, anyone. Like this is like salt of the earth talk. You can bring this back hundreds of years. This is the #1 conversational topic of the working class since day one of the working class, which is we hate this and we hate them. That's like the main thing they grumble about. Even back when labor conditions were a lot better proportionally, like in a relative sense, our country was a lot more economically equal back in the 1950s. Obviously not equal like in a broad sense, but in terms of the difference in wealth between the capital class and the working class, like right now it's stratified to an insane degree, but at the time it was comparatively a lot closer. And even at that time when Americans who had like union benefits, you know, they would work in like a domestic manufacturing plant and they would have like a job security that would allow them to retire or whatever. Back in those days, they still grumbled about their damn bosses. It's just the nature of the dynamic. You know, we forget that. Liberals forget that. The right wing doesn't forget it because they're always calling for people to die. The practice of the right wing, the narrative, the direction they walk down. I mean, the path they're building is one of mass death. They know where they're going. When Matt Walsh is in front of the Supreme Court, he's talking about how like he wants the total eradication of gender ideology. They know what they're talking about. They know they're a death cult. At least a lot of them do. But liberals forget. They forget because they believe in the institution. They believe in the numbers. I'm not saying the numbers are incorrect. I'm saying they believe in them. Like they believe they matter more than they do for politics. And they forget that deep in the heart of regular people is a sincere hate for anything, everything, and anyone that is worsening their life. And the liberal, in their arrogance, their you know, technocratic arrogance, they think, well, okay, sure, but let's set emotion aside and focus on the numbers, and we'll administrate the numbers, and we'll manage the numbers. And do they administrate them? Sure, they do a fine job sometimes. And then they lost the election. They lost the election to a retard. They lost the election to the weakest candidate maybe ever. Like every day a scandal, every day a weakness, like a 78-year-old rapist, pedophile loser with 1,000,000 points to attack, but the Democrats don't attack them because they think, well, it's not about the emotion. The only emotion Democrats think voters have is this earnest, like glassy eye or like starry-eyed faith in the American experiment. Hence, the stars are most visible when the sky is dark. That's the emotion they speak to. But people feel a lot of hate. This don't happen without a lot of hate. People feeling a lot of hate. Like, and you know, oftentimes the hate is more of an emotional outlet. Like, people will often hate their local 7-Eleven cashiers because they, like, I don't know, they take too long. So I'm not saying all hate is valid or should be appealed to. Some hates are a little more materially supported than others. This guy was fucking evil. Brian Thompson. The American health insurance industry is insanely evil. It's a parasitic middleman that siphons billions from working class Americans and provides something that they shouldn't even need provided to them. It robs them of a right that every civilized country should provide to its citizens and hands it back to them, for fistfuls of cash. And then often it doesn't even provide them what they are paying for, as is the case with UnitedHealthcare and the AI and the so on and so forth. It's a pretty legitimate hate. And in a sane world, Democrats would campaign on that hate. Bernie Sanders did a good job with this, and he reached a lot of people by speaking about the need for universal health care. But this is a weakness in Bernie Sanders, too. It's not enough to focus on good policy. You need an enemy. And oftentimes that logic is twisted and misdirected, you know? You need an enemy? Well, the Republicans found one. Haitians in Springfield. Trans people, so on and so forth. Okay, sure. But sometimes there's an actual enemy, you know? Like, sometimes there actually is, like, a very clear-cut, morally unambiguous example of a monstrous individual, institution, collection of individuals, whatever, and you can at least point at that. Look, what I'm advocating for would protect every existing health insurance CEO, because through the abolition of health insurance, there would no longer be any CEOs of health insurance, and then they would be safe because they would no longer be doing the things. They would no longer be attracting the negative attention. Oh, speaking of the negative attention, I don't know if you recall from last stream, but Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield was pushing to cap their coverage of anesthesia for surgery patients. That is to say, if you are going under the knife and you are expected to require 6 hours of anesthesia, but the surgery takes 8, the last 2 hours of anesthesia, that's coming out of your pocket. And that can be tens of thousands of dollars. Anesthesia is very expensive. They backed off that decision. They backed off of it 24 hours after... Now, I can't say that there's a causative relationship between these forces here. I can't say that. I don't know. Maybe it was just unviable. Maybe they decided it wouldn't save them that much money. Maybe the legal opposition to it was too substantial. Do I want to believe there was a relationship? I mean, Brian Thompson murdered a lot of people. He just did it in a way that's legal and socially accepted. I would like to believe that the world would be a better place if the consequences for doing that were a swift and harsh trial. I would like, it's as much catharsis as people are finding in this. In a good society, we would not defer to like the whims of armed lunatics and vigilantism as a way of addressing gigantic, obvious systemic failures. Like like in a good world, this shouldn't even be possible. We're grasping at the edges of catharsis here, but we are nowhere near, not even remotely close to being at where we need to be. And there are edgy ways you can go online and be edgy, but I'm like, sure, I'm not saying you shouldn't or can't or whatever. I'm just saying, like, we know what we need to do. The Democrats, if they want to win and if they want to make life better, need to push Medicare for all. And they need to push it with the militant passion that the Republicans have mustered for trans people. If Republicans can muster that much hate towards trans people who ain't done a goddamn thing except be really annoying on Twitter, how can Democrats not muster that much hate for people who are directly responsible for the death of so many people? It's because Democrats are stupid? Well, yeah, and also because they're in the pocket of capital, just like the Republicans. They're just, you know, the less effectual half of that dynamic at the moment. I just think, like, if you're a Democrat, an official, a pundit, a politician, whatever, and you're looking at all of this and your thought is like, well, the American people are looking forward to an end to this period of chaos and just want stability. No, they do not, because they know what stability looks like, and it's 90% of their insurance claims getting denied by AI. Stability in this context means the status quo, and they don't want that. They want change. They want change, and they are so desperate for it that they will basically like uniformly champion a random assassin. Like you can see people's responses here. It should indicate to you where they're at, you know? Like, it's not good. I've seen posts online from Europeans or like Canadians or whatever, and they're like, this is wild. How can you do this? And the Americans will respond with like, shut the fuck up. You have free healthcare. Shut the fuck up. You don't know. You don't know. People are pretty upset. Anyway, look, if you want an end to the death, you object, like there is a literal like mathematical path forward that ensures the smallest possible number of people die, like to prevent as many deaths as possible, and that's Medicare for all. The numbers line up, the math, the budget, it all lines up. All you have to do is axe the health insurance companies. That's it. You have to cut that off. Will that make some, big wallet motherfuckers mad? Sure, but like that is literally the most humane for everyone. You have no idea how quickly we're moving towards the US healthcare system here in the UK. It's terrifying. No, I know, because I've covered it. The only reason our system is like the way it is here is so it can siphon off as much wealth as possible for a very small number of administrators and capital holders. There is no benefit to this system from the perspective of like helping people. Like it is literally just, like there are two dials here, and it's more people suffer and die, but we make more money. And that's it. There is no like technocratic deliberation to be had. There's no like, well, actually, it's more complicated than you think. Because, there's like those types online with like the liberals, where they're like, well, actually, even though American healthcare is objectively inferior in like every way to every comparable nation that has more socialized healthcare, like there's actually a trade-off here. There's like a complicated, I've seen people say it's because of like homogenous population, like the fact that Norway has fewer races of people, that means that all the like, no, it's definitely not the privatization and the private health insurance. It's like some other thing, people love doing that. They do that shit with like rail as well. They're like, well, yeah, we can't build Northeast American rail. America's so big, it wouldn't work. And then you overlay a map of like European rail over America, and it's like, oh wait, they did that. You overlay like China high-speed rail over America, and it's like, oh wait, you can do that actually. It's actually like totally possible. People just want to find excuses for keeping the shitty fucking status quo. And the crazy thing is, a lot of them aren't even like propagandists. A lot of the people who are just looking for excuses to find the shit to preserve this shitty status quo are just engaging in the just world fallacy. Very common with liberals, the belief that the world could not possibly be so cruel as to have a deliberately inefficient, costly system that hurts a lot of people, that bankrupts millions of Americans every year, that leads them to suffer and die. They can't just be doing that for profit. There has to be a reason. So they invent one. It's the just world fallacy. It's really common. It's like structural functionalism gone wrong, Liberals love to do it.